That's like all she does.
Yeah.
So
She was an
really
older
good.
lady with the
Yeah,
weird
Pat.
tie
Pat.
thing.
Yeah.
She was a spitfire.
Yeah.
like
Every time I see the red
the
on this,
defense
I
put his
think that it's
the guy being charged on stand, and she tore him apart. It was like that was what ended.
I wouldn't want to testify telling the truth
Like
with her.
that's what I was like. I was like, this is like a grandmother who's like, I know there are cookies missing from the cookie jar. I found crumbs in your room, and he was just like,
Yeah. So she's been doing that for years, like 30 something
about
years.
15
guys
seconds
ready?
in, I was like, she's good at this job.
all right,
Very, yeah.
all right, good. Good evening, everybody. Like to call the meeting to order of the Durham Select Board. We got a full quorum this evening, and why don't we rise to pledge allegiance to the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First order of business. Any amendments to the agenda this evening? Jerry, we have to put anything in a different order this evening? Have everybody?
I don't believe so, we just have to talk about those budget items at some point.
Okay, so I'd like to make an amendment that we do have a couple additional budget items to discuss. Put them into new business and have you take us through that ahead of the warrant article review.
sounds
Probably
good.
makes sense,
Yep.
okay? A few items that came in. Okay, any other amendments anybody has? All right, public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Sir, come on right up, have a seat up. Please introduce yourself.
Gentlemen. Good evening. My name's Ryan McGee. I'm a resident of Durham for over 20 years. And I know I have 3 minutes max, so I'll just get right to it and explain why I'm here tonight. I'm sure there's some people that know me that are wondering why is Ryan McGee here. So as I said, I've been a resident here over 20 years, and I'd like to respectfully request that Durham Town Selectmen take a comprehensive look at law enforcement coverage in the community of Durham. I'll start off by saying the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office does an outstanding job. Sheriff Eric Sampson, all the way down to the frontline deputies, do an incredible job here in the town of Lisbon, and we owe them a great deal of thanks. The issue at hand is the town of Durham does not pay for police coverage, when in fact we pay for county services that include rural patrol. There's a misconception that we pay for police services when really it's a rural coverage. This is a reactive patrol, and deputies come here when they do not have issues going on in other parts of the county, as there's not enough of them to go around, unfortunately. I've heard in the past that selectmen have asked the deputies to do more traffic enforcement in Durham. However, that is only a very small percentage of what goes on in our community, and they are only able to do this when they are not tied up on other calls in Durham. Durham is the furthest south position in the county, and they have to drive through several towns that have police coverage to get here. In the town of Durham in 2023, I did some research and requested all the calls for service for the sheriff's office. There was about 1,000 calls for service in Durham last year. Out of those 1,000 calls for service, we only had 132 motor vehicle stops. This sheds important light on the fact that only 10% of the issues in Durham are traffic stops out of those 1,000 calls for police service. And that we do have a public safety situation that requires deputies to be assigned to our community for nearly 1,000 calls for service. Durham is a community with a population of 4,173 residents, according to the 2020 census, and we have no dedicated police services in the town of Durham. This is concerning to me, to say the least. The following is a list of towns that have police departments with populations far less than the town of Durham. And I'll go through them briefly. I'll list the name of the town and the population briefly so we can get through this, but you got Dixfield PD, 2,400, Mexico PD, 2,600, Freiburg PD, 3,400, Oxford PD, 4,000, Dexter PD, 3,700, Booth Bay, Gouldsboro, 1,745, Southwest Harbor, 1,779, Rangeley PD, 1,150, Wilton PD, you got Norrie PD, VZ PD, Holden PD, Richmond PD, Phippsburg PD, Pittsfield PD, and the list goes on of towns with far less populations. I try to keep it around 3,500 or less, which is substantially less than our town. Now, these are just a fraction of the towns that have decided to go with full-time police departments. And I am not here tonight proposing this. What I am asking for the town selectmen to do is authorize the town manager to look into contracting Androscoggin County deputies to be assigned to the town of Durham and not leave the borders of our community. This is something similar that is done in the town of Poland, and I believe it's long overdue for the town of Durham. I also believe this would benefit the safety of our Durham Fire Department, which continues to have an increase in calls for service. We have an outstanding fire chief and fire department, and I believe we should be supporting them with all of their needs and providing police support at scenes for them as well. More than once, I've heard our fire chief on the radio request police assistance, only to be told there are no deputies available at that time, and then request area agencies. Having a deputy assigned to Durham is something that would also assist our fire department. I believe we have grown to a point where we are too large to continue to ignore the fact we only have rural police coverage in this community, and our residents deserve to have assigned police coverage protecting their homes and families while they're away at work. I look across this room. I've been in law enforcement for over 23 years, and I know people in this room personally, and I know that I've responded to Durham myself for crises. I'm a police officer in a nearby community, and I really think that we should task the town manager at least to look into contractual services over the course of this next year and really put a comprehensive plan together this coming year of what does this look like for the town of Durham. We're continuing to grow. All of us have small children that are home, getting off the bus. I've been passed numerous times in my POV, not a smart thing because I definitely made contact with them the next day at work. But it's come to a point where I personally have seen the crime rate grow in Durham. I live here. I've seen it because I've responded to this community. And I'll just leave it with, I'd really respectfully ask that the selectmen task the town manager, who does a great job, to really look into this and get some real numbers of what this would cost the town, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's about keeping our loved ones safe. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, and being proactive. We also have a school in town. If something was happening in our community school, it is a long ways away for a law enforcement to get there. So with that being said, these aren't just numbers that I pulled out of a hat. Maine police employment data shows what the police departments have for population in police departments. I'm not looking for a police department. I'm looking for a sheriff's deputy to be assigned to our town and not leave the borders of our town. I have all the calls that we have in Durham that I requested the sheriff's department. I'll leave with the town manager. And I also have, on top of that, I have guidelines for starting police operations in small communities from the Bureau of Justice. We're not the first community to do this, and there's a full guide with grants and everything else in order to do this. This isn't something where we have to say taxpayers need to foot this whole bill, because there's a COPS program through the Bureau of Justice to help fund this and get it started. I'm a big proponent of grants at my agency, and I believe this would be a good way as well to start something in the town of Durham. So I'll leave this with them, and any questions, feel free to ask me. But I know I just want to keep it under 3 minutes. I know it was a lot to throw at you under 3 minutes. But I can just say I come with years of law enforcement experience. I truly care about this community. All three of my kids went through the Durham school system. And I lived here. I've got a lot of family that lives here in town. And I think it's time that we as people that live in the community and also elected officials and the town manager really take a hard look at this to help make sure we keep Durham the nice community that it is, because we're getting inundated in the area communities. So it's just, that's all I got for tonight, and I want to keep it short because you have a busy night tonight with the agenda. But if anybody has any questions, I'm free to answer them.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, we normally don't take questions
Yep,
during
no
the
problem.
Q&A this session. I
Completely
think we
fine.
do have a lot of questions, I
Yep,
would expect. So
absolutely.
we'll put this on a future agenda and talk about it as a board.
And I know you have a busy night, so
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
If you're
Appreciate it.
comfortable leaving your typed statement, you could leave that too, so we could
Yeah,
get
I'll
copies of
email
that.
it to you. How's that sound?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay. Move on to old business. So, next item is the Union Church. We have 2 items on the agenda here to discuss the funds and discuss the warrant articles. We did receive a letter from our attorney. I think his point was pretty straightforward, that, use of public funds it needs to be for a public purpose. I'll just start this off before we go into a little discussion here, that, I did go through what the Historical District Society provided us. Historical Society provided us for a package about a month or so ago. The chair of that board sent us that information. That, I believe, outlines need, public purpose quite well in that package. I didn't see any, and then also the town planner also provided us a letter indicating public purpose options that we can discuss, and I thought that was well laid out. I think some of them apply, some of them don't, but I thought that was a really great job by George putting that together as well, and providing that to the board. I'm going to open this up for discussion or a motion.
I have something to say, I'm just trying to find it. Hold on 1 second, please.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the draft warrant article page that's on the back of the attorney's,
Letter?
yes.
Yep.
And the only issue that I take with this is that in the explanation note, where it says all expenditures would be approved by the Board of Selectmen, we've discussed that at length, and if I'm recalling correctly, we discussed that would be held by Jerry. That would be Jerry's responsibility, because otherwise, they're in the same boat that they're in now. And so I just wanna make sure that that situation, doesn't continue to occur. And so I feel like that wording right there keeps it the same scenario that it is now, where they have to come before us to ask for the money.
Yeah, my thought, I saw that too, and my quick thought on that was that we're the keepers of the money once it's allocated. So I think Jerry could do all the upfront work and just come to us with a recommendation to say they submitted their invoice, and I believe this is accurate, and us just sign it off with, as a bi-weekly article that we would sign.
Like part of the warrant article.
Part of the warrant
Yeah.
article is what my thought was. So I see what the attorney wants us to make that decision, which is, I believe, why the warrant was written this way. But I could be mistaken, but that was how I took it. So, but I do see your point. We did talk about that in length, Heather.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on that. Right?
So, based on the article, on the letter from the attorney and George's explanation, I
Yep.
know that we had some conversation around concerns about whether or not this board felt as though it would be used for a public purpose. I personally don't share that concern, and given these explanations, I feel like it is not hard for us to arrive at the decision that this would be used for a public purpose, and therefore be able to dedicate those funds in that way. So I'm not sure if you need a motion, if you're looking for us to accept the draft articles.
I think that when we left last, might have been last meeting or the meeting before, that we were concerned that we didn't have public purpose well-defined. I believe we now have that well-defined, and that we're probably in a position to move this to becoming a warrant article as written. So I think we would just vote for moving that warrant article forward to the town for a vote. Joe?
Yeah, I move that we declare we believe public purpose will be achieved.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it for discussion.
Rich, seconds for discussion? I'm moving this to public purpose. Joe?
Yeah, I think that based off of the outline that, the town planner provided us with the different criteria, that this meets one or more of these for, potential public purposes. So for the, if it meets any of them, in my mind, it meets a public purpose, and that's what the bar we're trying to pass, so I think it clears that. Especially in, also including what they had submitted to us before about their goals and objectives and what they're trying to do, so I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
Can you just repeat how you worded your motion?
I don't know if I can. I think I said, I move we prove that this meets the criteria for public purpose. And I think someone pointed out, and George is saying this here, and I think someone from one of the members of the public had pointed out that just preserving it for the sake of keeping the historical building seems to pass the public purpose muster, plus the other things, like George said, elimination of town's current financial liability, and then potentially the retention.
I mean, 6.5 doesn't make, my thought was, I would make if I was, to make a motion on this, it would be to take the recommendation of the town's attorney. I don't feel qualified to, I understand what he's saying, but it's, in my opinion, it's a little, he's kind of switched compared to his first statement.
Isn't his recommendation that we have to make the determination?
Yes and no. I mean, he's now saying that this qualifies. In the past, he said we had to. So I'm okay as a board member saying we're taking the advice of the town's attorney. I'm just not personally qualified to make the decision on whether or not this is public. I can see it both ways.
So
honestly.
his advice is it would be up to the Board of Selectmen to determine what the public purpose is. So he's saying that it's up to us to decide. So if we take his advice, it would be to follow
I
our
see what you're saying.
advice.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then George George outlined the four public purposes.
He did, yeah, he outlined
I see what
four
you're getting at.
potential public purposes, and as well as the chair of the Durham Historical Society outlined the public purpose in their presentation to us as well. So I think together that gives you overwhelming, I'll say, evidence, lack of a better word, that public purpose is there and the intent is there. So I think that follows, as the letter that the attorney's saying, we get to a position that we feel as though that it's a viable facility for public purpose or lacking the word here, purpose in general, it is for public consumption in some manner. I think it gets us to being able to vote on moving these articles, as Rich says, to public vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's where it ends.
That's where it ends up, just that,
I just,
so do we want to change the motion to moving
No.
the articles, or just leave the motion as is?
No, I mean, I think we have to establish that we feel it meets the criteria of public
Public
purpose.
purpose?
And then
Okay.
if we do that, then we have articles available to present
Alright.
to the town.
So we have a motion on the floor to move that the Union Church and its transfer to the Durham Historical Society. We feel as though that there is a public purpose to this, and take the recommendation of the lawyer's letter that we move forward with these articles.
And just a
as
point of
written.
clarification, my motion wasn't to take the recommendation of the lawyer's letter, my motion was to just say that we declared that it meets public purpose.
Okay. We move that we approve the Union Church and, let's see here, move to approve that the Union Church
Meets the requirements
meets
for
the
a public
requirements of a
purpose.
public purpose. Yeah, there we go. Any other
The
discussion?
transfer,
I don't know if
the
you have
transfer,
more lawyers speak over here.
the transfer of the Union Church to the Historic Society would meet the
I'm
public purpose.
trying to establish a vote where we are saying that
It's,
we believe it's gonna meet the public purpose, and then we move into, okay, we've
but
established
what,
that this
what you're
transfer
saying is
would-
the Union Church meets public purpose,
Mhm.
but it's a public building right now, so of course it does, right?
Yeah,
So,
so are you saying amended
Yeah.
to say that the transfer,
inappropriate funds to help with certain expenses would meet a public purpose,
if that's a friendly amendment, I will accept it.
sure.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay,
Let the lawyers figure those words out.
motion carries. So do we have any discussion on the, next item would be the funds?
I would move, that we accept the two warrant articles as written.
Second that.
I have a second with Rich. Any discussion? Seeing none?
I was just
All
gonna
in favor?
say, I have the same weird feeling about the last sentence, about the approved by the Board of Selectmen, because I think we were trying to figure out how to streamline it, but it sounds like it has to be us in this
Yeah.
account, so,
Sorry,
in that regard, I'm good with it.
I'll keep my mouth shut. It's fine.
Okay, all in
Hey, I
favor?
wanna hear what you're gonna say.
All in favor? Motion carries. Articles as written. Okay? That takes care of our Union Church discussion. All right. Jerry, you want to,
Yeah, you wanna get into the
Why don't we
recent
just take
budget?
most of the meeting?
yeah, thank you all.
Sure, let's just wait for a moment.
Come up here, it'd be easier. You ready?
I'm ready. Lead us
You all
lead us
have a
through it.
little, you all have a little handout that looks like this.
Notes to the select board.
All right. So the county tax number come in this week, it came in
Yep.
yesterday, okay? So in 2023, it was $677,388. Well, it's now $742,140, that's a 9.6% increase.
Okay?
So in the budget book, we estimated 3, I just carried what they've done in the past. So if, the way this breaks down, if you want to keep the tax levy limit at 0%, or the tax, then your number with the solid waste is at 394. You'd have to use 673,000 of your fund balance to cover it.
Okay?
Now, if you meet where the budget committee is on the solid waste at 389, then you would, to keep the property tax levy at 0%, you would use 668,000 of fund balance. So that's kind of like where you're at. And I know that you had that $5,000 difference, and I wanted to just double check with you folks again. You've got an $11 million budget and a $5,000 discrepancy. Do you want to continue with that at town meeting, or do you want to?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the difference between what we had budgeted, hold on, wait, I have it in front of me, was county tax, 698. And now, that was what the budget book said for 2024.
Because estimated at 3%.
Right, and so now it's 742 and
140.
change, right?
Yeah.
And so, what was our number that we were saying we were gonna transfer? We were gonna use of the fund balance before?
633,475
Yep.
is the number that we had.
633,
Yep.
475.
75.
Okay. So $30,000 difference, but the difference in the difference in the county tax is 50,000. So I just wanna make sure, do you see what I'm saying?
It's, I believe, 40,000 difference, but yeah, I do see what you're saying. See, 42, 141. Yeah, where's the rest of the increase coming from? well, 60, basically.
I have both of them right here where it zeroes it out. I
Well,
think
we're,
it's
but we're,
No,
we would be
60
shy, cause the difference between what we budgeted and what you're saying the new thing is 50,000. But the difference in where we were and where you're saying we would go to is only
But at that-
30,000.
But the old one, you were at .05 though, at the tax levy, not zero.
I see.
0.05.
These numbers here, what they were before, what they were, but these numbers here are correct, they're right here in this budget.
I think we're
Okay.
just looking for the difference, though, I think is all
Okay.
that Heather was getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a $67,000 change, sorry, I miscalculated that. 742 down to 677, okay.
That still feels backwards though. Is it wrong in my head? Because if we were at, Jerry, I'm
Right.
not trying to second guess you, I just
No, no,
am
no.
making sure that I understand.
Right, and I don't have the old book budget with me because that's kind of
Yeah.
new if you want to stay at the zero,
Right, okay.
so.
So, because in my brain, what it's saying is that if we were at a 5%, is that what we said, 5% or?
0.05.
0.05% increase, right? And the difference would have been 50,000 if, with this new number, and now we're going to zero, it seems like the number that we would be using should be even more. Am I thinking of that incorrectly?
Let me think about it.
Okay.
If it was a 5%, a 0.5% increase from last year, then you're raising more. No.
Because
I'd have to do it.
if the difference is only 35,000,
Right,
but our increase in the county tax is 50,000,
yes.
and now we're going from 0.05 to now zero.
I get it.
I-
yeah.
it
You were
feels-
increasing it and taking up that
So-
.05, yeah.
So, I'm sorry, but where'd the 50,000 come from? Because
The
I,
difference between what our county tax when we did the budget was at 698,000.
oh, it's 698.
And now we're being told that it's 742,000.
Okay, all right.
What was the budget use fund balance prior to this change?
633,475.
Yep,
And now it's 6.
It's either 668 or 673 based on what we do with
So what
solid
you're saying
waste.
is county tax increased like 44,000 and change.
Yeah.
And if we're increasing the use of fund balance to consume all of that county tax increase and bring the 0.05% increase in taxes off, you would expect it to be larger than by the factor that we just increased the use
Correct.
of fund balance.
Correct.
Terry, real quick.
We,
Sorry.
yeah,
Did you go 5% or 3% on the budget?
When we estimated the county tax, 3%.
3%, okay.
It was the
That's what
school,
thought.
I think that
keep
was
hearing
5.
4.
5.
Oh, 4,
that's- Okay, 3.
I do wanna comment that the estimated tax is just that, an estimated tax, so getting it, calculating it to get exactly at zero is probably neither here nor there, right? Because eventually, when you actually go to commitment, you're gonna have an overlay on top of whatever the estimated tax is. So even though you're trying to get it to zero on the budget workbook, it's really more of all right, it's around zero, right? You see what I'm saying? So even if Jerry's numbers are wrong, they're not gonna be that far off, you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? Is that,
Yeah,
can I
go ahead.
speak? So my only concern with this is that when we put the levy, if we're in a scenario where we have to put the levy question on the warrant, whether we want to increase the levy limit, right? The town, I can almost guarantee will say no. And so that's why I'm asking this question, because if we're that close to where we would need to increase the levy limit, we're not.
No.
Oh, okay.
The
Close.
levy limit is.
We'll talk about that when we get to the
Okay.
warrant article.
Okay.
Nowhere near.
Okay.
nowhere near the levy limit.
Okay, I rest my case.
The only thing I would note in this is that while the levy stays the same, the mill rate does go up in this, and that's what the townspeople look at.
That's a good point. It's a really good point.
Again,
Yeah,
that's
but it's-
also based off of last year's valuation, and the valuation is gonna be done as of April 1st, and generally valuations go up from one year to the next. And so this is really the estimate that you get in that workbook is essentially a worst case scenario, right? It's, well, we're gonna actually budget to use up all of that fund balance, we're gonna raise that amount of taxes, and the assessment for the town, the valuation of the town doesn't change from one year to the next. So most likely, it's going to increase by some percentage, 2%, 3%, and that will actually cause your mill rate to go down. If you raise the exact same amount of taxes from one year to the next, and your valuation goes up, then your tax mill rate is gonna go down.
I don't wanna sound snippy, but I understand that, you understand that? Most people understand that?
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask.
That's why I
I
raised the
get you.
concern. That's, I mean, I get that, but that's not how people will look at it when they see it in front of them. And so,
So what do we do about that?
There's nothing you can do.
there's nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, I think that at the meeting, there would be the opportunity for someone from the board to explain that if they felt that it was getting a lot of pushback. Just say, here's our,
And ultimately, the townspeople
Mark
don't
will
vote.
explain it.
Ultimately, the townspeople don't vote on the mill rate, that's a
Right.
select board vote.
Right. Mm, yeah. Okay, so what you want from us is you wanna know if we want to stay with our 394 or do 389 so that we're just not $5,000 difference on an $11 million budget.
Right, and the use of fund balance that's married to those numbers. If
Okay.
you wanna stay at the 0% tax levy limit,
Okay,
property levy limit. So, yeah.
this isn't a hill I'm gonna die on, I'm neither here nor there about this.
Does this cause the budget committee to have to meet again?
No, they wouldn't have to.
No.
Although they might
It-
increase their use of fund
Fund
balance
balance,
because
they
the
may have
tax,
to- they may
the
have to
tax
meet,
came
yep.
in and we're using it, yep.
Yeah.
What was theirs was $5,000 less than ours.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
my trash concern.
Right, my
But
guess
if
is that they
We're really
will-
concerned about that derailing of the town meeting.
And I mean, we don't know if it's gonna go over 375, we don't even know if it's gonna go over 380.
You have
I
no-
mean, it
You
could,
have no idea.
we have no idea.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's
what's
always
the-
an estimate, I was
Right.
just trying to
Yeah.
Right,
estimate
I get it.
for the worst case, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all set meeting that budget committee number. It doesn't really matter, because it is an estimate. And it isn't a hill to die over.
Yeah, I mean, if we think it's just easier to meet their number,
Do you wanna vote?
Yeah,
We
we
have-
Yeah.
need one,
Have a
yeah.
motion?
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we use $668,000 of the fund balance towards the 2024 budget.
and lower our solid waste number to 389,000.
And lower our solid waste number to 389,000, thank you.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second, begrudgingly. It's not like we need that.
Joe seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carries.
Thanks.
Use
So-
$668,000 of the fund balance and reduce, for the
I don't want to
2024
make
budget, and reduce the
$5,000
solid waste to $389,000, which will match the budget committee's number.
Okay,
Okay.
yep. The other thing that I want to talk about, I'm kind of glad this came in when it did, because last year we talked about adding either contingency lines to the budget for unforeseen things, and that kind of got shot down, at least by the budget committee. They didn't want any part of it. So we just got a workers' comp audit. So what workers' comp works, they'll audit your previous year's numbers. So for 2023, we owe them $5,997. And when there was a big fire this summer, one of our fire trucks got damaged, so it had to get fixed. So we're facing a $1,000 deductible. Well, there are no lines in the budget really to pay for that. So we should talk about how do we want to pay for that? Do you want to add contingency? I put down some articles, examples that you could put in the budget authorizing the select board to to make these payments that are unforeseen. I mean, we've got 7,000, it's only February. I don't have a crystal ball, and neither, I assume you folks don't either, to know what else might come in as far as something. If we were to pay these percentages in the current workers' comp line as it is, will be 312 over in the town office workers' comp, 2450 in public works, and 3235 in the fire department. That's how much they'd be over in their workers' comp line. So, I don't know how you wanna handle those overspent funds. And the first one, that example that you see on your notes, both of those come from two different towns and how they handle their unforeseen expenditures when they have them. And, I mean, it can happen. I mean, it's happening now.
So in other words, it would just be an article to simply say, you know, we're not necessarily budgeting, but we would allow the select board to spend up to a certain amount out of the undesignated fund balance
Yep.
for, and they explicitly say like workers' comp and insurance deductibles or something like that.
Or just for unforeseen expenditures, because you
Yeah.
don't know what they're going to be.
Yeah,
Is the current situation that the select board can do up to, well, like just under 10,000?
$9.99.
I don't think so.
It would have been.
So-
I
No.
don't think so.
No, you don't have any authority to spend any money outside of the operating budget, because there's no articles in the,
So I feel
Warrant to give you
confused
that
because I think
authority.
on 2 occasions we've authorized, Josh, did you feel like you were gonna say something?
It's fine.
Right? We had 2 situations where
Yeah.
something came before us and we authorized, and the number was set at 9,999 because if we went to 10, oh, it
It was
was
out of-
Chief's
The-
truck.
the
It was
rapid
out of-
response
The fire
vehicle.
department.
Capital?
In and out of capital.
yeah, you have that
expenses.
authority.
Building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
slightly different, yeah.
Okay, and so this would be the same type of thing, except that it would be listed as undesignated fund balance
Take- yeah.
to do,
Well, you got the top one, whereas if they have, you know, money left in their budget lines, you can authorize them to move like a certain percentage from one line to the next. You could go that route too.
Well,
But that would be a little bit.
so I feel confused about that because, right, we approve things by article, the entire article, not line by line. So wouldn't you already be able to do that? Like, we're not approving $10,000 for workman's comp. We're approving $500,000 for the administration
Right,
budget.
so so departments, or however you wanna do it, in your operational budget, if you've got unexpected expenditures, somehow we gotta find the money within the budget to pay for those. So you could write an article to go in the operational budget somewhere and.
So this
find
would,
out, yeah.
this would allow you to take it out of a different department's budget.
Right.
I see.
So that like for this overspent Article 5 on this example, we wouldn't have that necessarily, well, I'm assuming we wouldn't have it because money went back in to the fund balance. And instead, $3,235 would have come out of that fund balance money and used to pay that, so we wouldn't have had to vote on, which is why I think that shows the town that we're not spending more money that we're holding, even if they've already paid it. It's just taking out of money that's already there. And I think, to me, that's a more appropriate way to do it.
Joe?
I was just gonna say, I don't like that approach as much, not to be argumentative, but where I'm concerned is like, then it's kind of like, oh, we're running into this issue, it's already February, and you have one department head hitting up the other department head saying, hey, where do you think you're gonna come in a little under, can you cut out that thing that you're gonna do so we can get some of the money, cause I'm gonna be over on my workman's comp or over on my insurance claims, so I think that the idea of the fund balance as kind of like rainy day fund or something like that is perfect for something like this, rather than kind of like trying to find that little bit here and there from other departments, because you know, there might be a situation like next year, like last year, where you know, Public Works didn't need to rent a piece of equipment that they were hoping to rent, so they have a little bit left over, but at the same time, I don't wanna bank on that, or make them say like, hey, is there anything you can not do to save a little bit of percentage there, so.
Rich?
I've never seen us over the years commingle funds, meaning if fire department is light, we take from public works. I've never seen that. This is a budget, and the budget, it's a forecast. There's no way to get it to an exact science. If something goes over or something goes under, for example, if something goes over, you add a warrant article at the end of the year that explains that, and you ask the townspeople to pay for it. There's just no way to build in all these contingency funds on every single possible scenario that could outplay during the year. I mean, this happens every year, almost.
So what you're saying, if you overspend, that's okay, we'll just ask for it in the next town meeting?
Well, I'm not saying it's okay, I'm just saying it's
Well-
not that uncommon that sometimes unforeseen expenses, like a fire truck has an accident or something like that, something that is not planned, that stuff happens, whether it's in life, whether it's in a town, whether it's anywhere. And as far as a contingency budget, I think that's a great idea, for the record. Historically, we have proposed that question about probably 2-3 years ago to the town, and it got shot down very, very fast. I don't agree with it. I think the select board should have a little bit of leniency with it, but it's never held on the floor.
I have a question,
Excuse me.
sorry.
Joe?
So in the past, when you said it was it proposed in each department's budget to say, hey, there's a contingency item for this department of X amount, or was it proposed as kind
I
of
think
like
it was
this
a-
25,000?
No, I think if my memory serves me right, it was for like a $10,000 contingency fee.
Mhm.
And I wanna say it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, maybe I had it right.
Mhm.
Yeah, last
'Cause I haven't
I
remembered in
feel
the
like it
last
was
couple of
last
years.
year.
Was it last year?
It was
Budget
last
committee,
year,
budget
yeah.
committee shut it
All
down.
these years, you'll
What was
see,
it?
all these years go
You
together.
wanted to add $10,000.
I think that's, I mean,
Last
but I
year.
think a
So-
good point is
Mixed
that.
it, and I
Hang on,
don't
one-
think it
one-
went before the town, because that
What's
was like
that,
the
Heather?
soundboard.
Sorry, we can't.
Sorry,
Yes.
I was explaining to Jerry where the $10,000 was. It was proposed last
But I
year.
was just gonna say, I think that's a good point to bring up. I mean, I don't wanna sound like you're bringing the same question every year, thinking, oh, this is just gonna get voted down, but I think it could be a good point to bring up, like, we tried to do this in the past, it was shot down, and we're now in the same situation where we're running into needing those contingency funds, cause I think of it as like a little different than just like a random, like, oh, here's 25 grand in case we run over, when we're talking about it specifically for things like insurance deductibles on town vehicles that are responding to emergencies, like, it's, inevitably something is gonna happen, and that's kind of one of those things that's like, budgeting for maybe needing an insurance deductible, I think is smart. Whether someone votes for it or not, is a different thing, but,
Good.
I mean, we don't have any money in the budget if someone were to leave and take family insurance. We don't have any money in the budget if Calvin were to leave and we were to pay him out and replace him. I mean, we don't have any of those sort of
Contingencies,
safeguards
yeah.
in the budget at all.
What are the rules around the emergency reserve? Like, is that something that specifically for this scenario, we would be able to authorize money out of the emergency reserve to be able to pay this bill? And there's not a lot of money in there, but I'm wondering, like, if we added money to that, there's $16,953. So if we put on the warrant, do we wanna ask the town to add money to that reserve for the use of these purposes? I don't know what the rules are around the emergency reserve.
Yeah.
I can't recall what the emergency reserve is for, to be honest with you. I'm
It
not
seems
sure.
like this
I
kind of
I know it's for
situation.
emergency, but I don't know if it's for like emergent,
Like a public safety
public safety
emergency?
emergency or
Safety, yeah.
public assistance emergency, things like that. I don't remember specifically what it's for.
Yeah, I thought we had that discussion before, and that's kind of where that money was
we've had so many.
allocated for those types of, I didn't think it was for anything, otherwise somebody would have used it by now.
Do you have an answer? Do you know?
Can you recognize
I don't know.
I
I
can-
don't know what the emergency
I-
reserve is.
contingent, Mark, what have you seen contingency wise and budgets and stuff, because you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I mean, and Josh touched on it. I just wanted to be clear that these two different examples are common, right, in town. Usually it's one or the other. Sometimes you have towns that actually have both. just be aware that the 5% budget line item is from one warrant article approval to another. So for example, if you use your old style warrant articles, it would allow up to 5% from Public Works to go to animal control, for example, right? That's unexpended. Under the new ones, it would be at the warrant article level, so it would go from 5% of general government, which includes 5 different departments, 5% of that general government budget to, the public safety budget, which is both the fire department and the animal control. So the first one gives you a lot of leeway without increasing your overall appropriations. Does that make sense? The second one means that you're actually appropriating, in the case of emergencies, $25,000 on top of what the townspeople already approved at town meeting. I was gonna suggest the emergency reserve as, you already have an emergency reserve, because I interpret the emergency reserve as a contingency reserve, basically. But that may not be what it was originally set up for. I don't know what it was originally set up for.
I couldn't speak to it, I honestly
Yeah.
couldn't.
I just want to add, I would be leery of just overspending and then going to the next town meeting and asking for it, because if someone in town meeting says, no, we're not going to authorize you to do that, then, and they really push it, and it goes to court because it's a misuse of funds, I'm just saying, this, if the judge, hold on, let me finish.
Yeah.
The judge could basically order the select board to pay it out of your personal assets or the department head. It's right in the law, it's right in the MMA manual. So I'm just giving you the information. If I don't give you that information, I'm not doing my job.
So, all right, so, I just want to back up here a little bit. So the workers' comp line item, we have a workers' comp line item, correct?
Yes.
And so what you're telling me is that what we've, I'll say estimated, is not enough, because we have now a $6,000
In
additional bill.
2023,
For 2023, so it's what we had previously.
right,
So it's not this current budget that we're talking about, it's last year's
right. It's
budget.
last year's
So,
workers' comp.
so
audit.
first of all, you wanna know, where do we get $6,000 from? I think we need an article out there for workers' comp for an extra $5,997 to cover the workers' comp overage, right?
Yeah, and
So stop, all
Yeah.
right? So that's the first thing, right? So the second thing is we have a $1,000 deductible on a fire truck, a separate article, $1,000 for a fire truck deductible that we didn't expect them to crash it, so get it.
Well, it wasn't
All right.
crashed.
Whatever, it was.
I guess it's
was-
just
So,
important
hang on,
distinction.
let me finish. So $1,000 for whatever the deductible was for in regards to the fire truck. Another adder from 2023? Yes, 2023.
It's getting paid
Okay.
this year, yep.
So then, so that's an additional $6,997 that we didn't budget last year. We need to find where that money's coming from and then ask the town for it. Or just, we know where the money's coming from, but just ask the town for it in a warrant article. So then the underlying issue is that moving forward, what do we want to do, right? So first off, I just want to finish the budget items here. We have these as examples of why we want money allocated separately as a contingency fund. Question is down below, which is the second part of this discussion. So are we okay with asking the town for an extra $5,997 for the workers' comp to cover it, the overage from 2023?
So I just want to be clear, it wasn't something that we budgeted for. It wasn't anything that we did. It's just,
No, but it's a number that gets calculated, and this is what it came in at, higher than what it was budgeted. I mean, it's a budget number when you put it in last year's budget, right? We get unless I'm misunderstanding something on how workers' comp works.
Well, that was gonna be my question, Jerry. Did the experience rating cause the change, or just more hours worked?
you have more employees getting paid more.
But it wasn't
The-
like an experience rating, like you jumped up a block?
No, our rate actually went down.
That's what I thought, that's why I was kind of
Right.
shocked at.
It's just that the workers' comp's gonna do an audit every year on your
Right.
workers' comp. We have to send them that report.
Based on payroll.
Every
Okay.
year, and then they readjust it. Last year, we got 16,000 back.
Right. Okay, so we.
So it's nothing
that's-
that we budgeted
so-
for, it's unforeseen.
So that's,
bill.
so I mean, but that's a good news story. We
Right.
received $16,000 back, and then the audit came up with a $6,000, $5,997 difference that we now have to take out of that $16,000 that we got back,
I don't
right?
think it works that way.
No,
It doesn't work that way.
no. These are unforeseen expenditures you don't budget for, so
Yeah.
you have to find a way to pay for them. That's really.
Yeah, I mean, my
bottom
mind,
line.
isn't like in the past, you would pay for that workman's comp this year in that number. Whatever you have scheduled for workman's comp this year would decrease, and then you would add that at the end of the year, in next year's budget.
So
Right, but
clarification, sorry.
but the problem with that, then you're taking the department's budget and you're reducing other lines because it's by the article, so,
Or you can pay by the workman's comp.
right, but
It's gonna come
still,
out of
it's,
that, and then
it's,
it should work out. It's not the first time this has happened.
right, but what I'm saying is, if you have $100 in your article and you're gonna overspend something by 25, that reduces his whole budget. He's gonna have to cut back in his other lines, cause that could,
I get it, I
you
get it.
know, so that's not great.
But what I was getting at, you typically don't cut back, but that's okay.
Joe?
I'll let you go first, Josh. 'cause you-
So, thank you. So in 2023, the general government budget was 665,000, the actual was 633,000. The public safety budget was 541, the actual was 535. By taking 5% out of these, you're not, that change comes towards the end of the year. So by that point, you should know reasonably well what accounts money will be left in. And so, and to me, asking us to come up with, whether it be from the fund balance or raise another $25,000, when we've had these numbers, and let's also look at the funding. Last year, the budget was 2.28 million, and our actuals were 2.5 million. And so I think at the end of the year, there is going to be money left over somewhere to pay this $7,000 and other numbers that are overspent, assuming our department heads act reasonably like I expect they would and try to adhere to their budget. So I, for one, would not support adding any additional funds, whether it be raised or appropriated or from the fund balance or anywhere else. I would support the 5%. I think that's more appropriate and gives us more room to move than the 25,000. I do, however, think there should be a contingency fee for the town manager. I wouldn't put it in this budget, but the next budget, so that there is some money for things that might come up that the town manager knows about, and it would help our town.
Thank you, Josh. Joe?
So, I'm trying to wrap my head exactly around what you're just describing, where you're saying, you know, as things are getting towards the end of the year, department heads are looking, saying, oh, I'm gonna be under budget here, I'm gonna be over here, I have this unexpected expense. But we're dealing with this like needing money now, right?
Well, we're gonna pay, we have the money to pay
Right,
it now.
and
It's
so,
just-
but I guess the reason I'm a little bit more for just having a small contingency pool is that if there are multiple issues in different departments, they both might not be able to swing enough to cover the other one, you know? Or, like, I just worry about getting in the position where we budgeted for important things for the departments, and they're like, all right, well, now let's make a cut on, let's not do X, Y, and Z, because we wanna free up a little bit of money, because we gotta cover the other departments, and that's kind of getting to like what you were saying about how we haven't done that in the past. So, I'm not comfortable with that, I need a little bit more convincing, but that's kind of where I think that an easier route is, we're not planning on touching this contingency unless there's a problem, and then it's there, because I also don't like the idea of, well, we got a budget, but we expect a bunch of people to be under budget in certain things, because it's like, in that regard, why would we budget that much if we expect there's gonna be enough fluff to move 5% from department to department? You know, should we just pick a department and say cut 5% because we expect someone's gonna find fluff somewhere. I
So-
mean, that's my only, I like being as close to the number as possible, is where my concern is.
So, if,
Go ahead, Josh.
so, what this does is this allows you to take 5% of a budgeted item from, for example, from the town manager's salary and put it on something else.
Well, it's not line by line, it's warrant article by warrant
Okay.
article. Yeah.
So from the general government to public works. And yes, these are estimates, but consistently, we've been putting money into the fund balance, which means our estimates are not perfect. And so our goal has been to make sure we have enough. So what we're doing by this 5% is saying, we expect that we should have this money left over because some expense goes down. Or something doesn't get done this year, for whatever reason. And that way, we're not out there saying, hey, we're taking this $25,000 of your money, however we get it. We're saying, we've already done this, and we're going to make this budget work. And if it doesn't work, towards the end of the year, we have a special town meeting and we figure out a way to pay for it. Because then we've really screwed up the budget, and then we're in trouble, if we can't find that. And so we're talking about minuscule amounts at the $7,000. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to say, townspeople, we're gonna take more of your money, whether it's from the fund balance that you've already paid, or we're raising your funds just to cover this $25,000, which of course would be minuscule in the grand scheme of things. I think, based on historical data that we have, that we're privy to, we should have enough to cover these expenses, and if something goes over by more than 5%, we've done something wrong, and it has to be readdressed, and this $25,000 isn't gonna cover it. But this gives us more leeway, and it makes us look more fiscally responsible, which I think is important, at least it is to me, so.
Joe?
Yeah, so I guess my devil's advocate thought process there is, if we're explaining this at town hall, what prevents someone from standing up and saying, why do you have so much fluff budgeted into the town budget?
I wanna just stop you there. I
Why?
wanna characterize this as fluff. This is an estimate. This is a budget that's
I-
pretty close.
all budgets are estimates
And
by
so-
definition. I
so-
get that.
But
My
the
response-
characterization
No,
is an issue.
My
so-
response would be,
I'm
what
just
if,
trying to
we,
predict our
this
conversation.
is worst case scenario, right? This is the fuel bill, the fuel stays the same price, electricity stays the same price. What if it goes down? What if we get something else where they said, oh, we estimated this, but it's really this? We don't know, there's so many things in there, or we have a few less storms, so there's less overtime.
Or we have more storms and there's more overtime and there's a call volume increase and then everything and gas doesn't go down, it goes up like it normally does.
And you think that
Electricity-
$25,000 is gonna cover
I
that?
think
No, we're
that
gonna be
it's- I
back.
think that it's good for things like what we're seeing here and insurance premiums and stuff like that. I think that that's where I see it as kind of being a strength. You know, if you don't need it, you don't use it, but if you have a massive structure fire or a massive issue with a storm and then you have to just cover that insurance, it gives those department heads that cash flow so they don't have to take it out elsewhere. So that's where I'm coming from this. It sounds like we're trying to address the same issue, just I'm seeing slightly different pros and cons, you know.
Heather?
Are we looking for this year? And then perhaps next year, if there was a contingency line approved, like this conversation wouldn't necessarily, this warrant article wouldn't, because that would have to go on every year, right? We wouldn't be able to approve it this year and then it would just continue. We would have to ask for that year after year after year.
Yeah.
It would go in the business article
Mhm.
portion.
Yep.
Okay, so, okay, that answers my question. Mark, is it okay for Mark to,
So-
Mark wanted to say something?
Got a second? Yeah, all right, go ahead.
So I kind of want to just kind of offer my thoughts about all of this conversation. So you have to remember that this $6,000 or $7,000 is being paid in this year, and really, because it's an immaterial amount from a financial statement perspective, it's really up to the town manager or the finance director on which year to put it into, right? Because as an auditor, I'm gonna take a look at it and go, well, it's really for last year's workers' comp, so you really should include it in FY '23. And if the town manager goes, yeah, but I don't wanna do that, I'm gonna just put it in FY '24, even though technically, under accrual accounting, it should be in FY '23, the auditor's not gonna care about that, right? It's not gonna affect the audit opinion, and so it'll fly, right?
So I'm gonna stop you. So you mean to absorb it into the current budget that's already budgeted here on paper and
That's correct.
not and put any additional monies into any account anywhere?
That's correct. If I were looking at this.
Okay.
If I'm looking at this, I wouldn't suggest doing an additional warrant article at the current town meeting. I wouldn't worry about this being at $7,000 already at February. I think it is a good point on Jerry's part to say, well, look, I already have 7,000 unexpected costs that I didn't factor into the FY '24 budget, and it's only February, so, there could be other things.
Well, I'm
And-
gonna stop you again,
Yeah.
because I asked that earlier, if it was budgeted in here, and you said no. And there is a budget in here for workman's comp, which this number here, you said that this was not budgeted in earlier.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, when you're doing up the calculations for to arrive at the different budget amounts, he's just looking at, well, workers' comp is gonna be X amount, $70,000 a year.
Well, all right, but we lowered workman's comp across the board on every single line item in the 2024 budget. So is that an accurate number at this point? Because now we have an overage that we need to account for. So I get it, it's an estimate, but have we taken too much out of each line item here from a workers' comp perspective? We're gonna be back next year asking for another 10 grand. Or should we have left it at $40,000 on this line item and another?
Well, the
Well,
audit, the
there's-
audit has been done since those numbers, and that's how he knows that the number isn't the
Well-
same,
And
So-
correct?
Right, but
my-
if we had the option to load it into the 2024 budget, why is it not there right now?
Well, the answer is because overall, from a 3,000-foot perspective, your FY '24 budget as approved is perfectly fine. You don't need to increase it, even for this $7,000, you don't need to decrease it. The way you have it set up right now, where you're gonna have X millions of dollars of appropriations, and the net effect to the taxpayer is that the taxes being levied is gonna be the exact same as last year, I think is a absolutely perfect budget, and on top of that, you're already budgeting to use up to $600, almost $700,000 worth of fund balance, which is, I think, appropriate, given the size of your unassigned fund balance, right? So my point being that specifically for these expenditures, I wouldn't worry about them. I wouldn't worry about having an article in them for this FY '24. You could actually probably include them in FY '23, because I don't think you're gonna be over budget in FY '23 anyway, even if you included them. So it's really up to the town manager to figure out which year they wanna put it in. But the overarching concept is, how much flexibility do we want to have in the budget? And so, part of the reason why the suggested warrant articles are crafted the way they are is because as a business manager for towns and schools, when I was doing that, our overarching objective is to have as much flexibility to manage the finances as possible. So that's why the warrant articles are crafted as such, so that instead of having each department have it, you have it by category, so that now I have a lot of flexibility already worked into that warrant article. The additional warrant article of being allowed to move up to 5% from one warrant article budget to another warrant article budget only adds to that flexibility. I agree, personally, I agree with Josh, given what Rich has said about the townspeople will vote it down if it's a contingency fund. So why even get into that debate with them? Why even, bring it up when you already have flexibility in the fact that you've appropriated X amount of dollars, which is most likely going to be more than is necessary, And the reason why you do that, again, is for financial flexibility, so you don't have to go back to the townspeople. And you offset that by increasing the amount that you're going to use from fund balance, so that you have the appropriation if necessary, but you're not necessarily gonna use it. And then you simply use the 5% article to add an additional layer of flexibility, but you're most likely not even going to use this. You see what I'm saying? So my point would be, why even bring it up if if you're pretty certain that they're not gonna allow it? Why even ask for it when you can ask for something that is a lot easier to pass, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then even if that one doesn't pass, it's not that big of a deal, because if you craft the warrant articles, you already have built-in flexibility. That's my overarching
Okay,
comments.
so you're not necessarily asking to put this, asking for a separate article for this, you were just using this as an example, sorry. I gotta grab it.
Right, and I wanna make clear on how the whole workers' comp, because you send them a workers' comp report, they'll send you a invoice of what your workers' comp is for the whole year, and then they're gonna audit it. And that's what the 6,000, it's not budgeted, it's not, you can't anticipate it,
It's like pay by the week.
right? So I just want you to be clear on that, because you seem confused on how it gets calculated, like should have been in last year's budget, but you don't know that until they get the report for this year, and then they go back and audit it.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. The only way to alleviate that is go by like a workman's comp per week. So every time you run payroll, there's a calculation done on each payroll. You can do it that way.
Right.
And that's not the standard. The standard is what Jerry's
Right.
describing, and it's a very typical process that.
Right.
that
We'll get
happens.
audited for '24, once that season's over, we'll
Correct.
send them the information, and they'll audit, and they may change the number next year for us.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, the other way you do it is really kind of overestimate what your payroll is gonna be, because they base their 2024 premiums off of what you sent them for an estimate, what we sent them for an estimate for 2024 payrolls. We said, back in October, we said, in 2024, we think we're gonna have X millions of dollars in payroll. They do the calculation and go, okay, well, if you have that in 2024, this is what your premium is gonna be, so we're gonna charge you that. At the end of 2024, let's take a look at what you actually have.
Had, right?
Okay.
So I've been, in general, trying to estimate on the high end for payroll, because when it comes to workers' comp, because I would rather get a refund when
Right.
they do the audit, as opposed to having a bill when they do the audit. It means you're paying the premium, you're paying more of a premium throughout the year than you really need to, but you'll get a refund for it. It's kind of like income taxes.
Yeah, it's better to get a little or.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't be getting $40,000 rebates.
No.
Right.
all right.
That's interest rate.
Okay, so
So-
for clarity, Jerry, you're not asking for us to put an individual warrant article on to cover this $6,997. You don't want an additional warrant article for that?
I want something that reads just like what is right here,
Okay,
Which is what?
the first
the
one.
first one, okay,
The
so.
the
Something
article
that
example,
allows
the
you-
5%.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we add, the first article example on our notes to the 2024 warrant.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Josh seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
All right. So we're gonna go over the warrant articles now.
yep.
So I gave you two, one that you're used to, and one that, I'd like to see you maybe consider moving to. Just because it's a little cleaner and it follows the budget book.
Which is the new one.
Well, you're familiar with this one, right? When you look at it. Yeah, you're familiar with that one, right?
What color is it?
It's the same
Front
layout as
page.
the last one. They're both the same color. Front page.
They're both
That's the one at the
exactly
top.
the same, you'll just see the different layout and how it's,
So the
How it's
old
laid
way is the one that has the black stripe across
Right.
the
Yeah,
top.
thank you, I got it.
Okay,
That's all I was looking for.
And the highlighted parts are the changes?
Well, ones that we should talk about, and that's somewhat.
So you're asking about
remarks.
format first, and then.
Well, I just,
are
yeah,
we
I mean,
gonna-
they're
well,
the content is the same. I just wanted you to see both
So which one do you
formats.
wanna go through?
They're both, exactly. We'll go through the new one or the old one. It doesn't matter.
I would suggest we go through the new one, I like that one better, where it's down, broken down by category and as we prepared the budget and
Yeah, I
in the larger sums.
agree with you, Josh.
Okay, so see.
And the highlighted ones are just discussion like this overspent article. But I had talked to the MMA attorneys and they recommend leaving that overspent article in there.
I do have a question about this. So this is a lot of extra data in here compared to the traditional methodology of a single line item.
It's just broken down into larger sections of the budget, the way that we did our budget, instead of line by line. So instead of doing separate warrant articles for administration, municipal buildings and grounds, assessing, information technology, planning and code enforcement, because we've labeled our budget as general government and included all of those, that's just how it's broken down. So to me, that's how we've broken down the budget, and I think that's how we should do it.
Yeah, it seems like how we've been discussing.
I mean, it doesn't really make a difference, but it
Okay.
might save
No, I
a little
agree,
bit
this is the
on.
most transparent and the easiest for the lay people in the audience and even the not so lay people to follow. I think this, is a better setup based on the way the budget is proposed.
I think it also, I mean, even though town meeting was very fast by comparison last year, this lends itself to even getting through it faster, because typically administration would have been its own vote.
New
Information
one's
technology,
39 articles, old one's 47.
Yeah.
This
It-
just consolidates. I agree with you, sorry.
no, it's fine,
Okay.
we were making the same point. Okay,
With the new one, the only thing that didn't get inserted in this is the ordinance articles, but they're in the old one, so. look
Okay.
at those. So,
okay. Joe, do you wanna read the highlight, or would you, those are the ones that he wants us to discuss? Or do you want me to read them, or?
No, I'm just looking at this for a second. So we're just gonna go through the highlighted items?
when you go through it, the reason why I highlighted them was because I wanted to discuss them, that's all, because the overspent article was from, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, all right, so you wanna just, any questions on Article 1? No?
Do you
Article
want us to
2, I just
vote
wanted to,
article by article as
I
to
don't
whether
believe we have to
wanna
vote article by article, we can discuss them and then. I don't remember doing that last year, so I wasn't
Voting on?
voting on every article, no. We just-
I've never voted on any.
No,
I think
right.
the appropriate discussion is any changes, like the
Yeah.
highlight areas for saving, I think overall.
And you'll add the one we added to
Alright.
Pretty cut and dry.
Yes, I
Okay.
will add that.
Uh,
I just wasn't sure since it was a kind of
No.
a change in
Oh,
appearance,
alright.
if we wanted
So
to.
start with number 5, Jerry?
Yeah, so that was in there, and this is an overspent article from 2022, and I was talking with Mark about it, and we were discussing, you know, should we put it in there where it's 2 years old? I did talk to the MMA attorneys today just to get their view, and they said, yeah, you're gonna wanna leave it in there, just for transparency. It's overspent, you should ask for that money, so. So we're gonna leave that in, we're gonna leave that one in there. And reason why, I just want to be clear, the reason why he overspent is because he applied for grants and he used money out of his operational budget thinking that the matching was gonna come back and go back in, and it just didn't happen. So, that's that
Okay.
one. So that'll stay.
17 and 18 we reviewed already.
Yeah, so 17, you're good with those, right, the way they're written? You approved them earlier.
Yeah. Okay. 23,
Okay, so 23 ties to the capital accounts, the reserve accounts, and this would give the select board authority to expend those funds as they deem necessary. Well, you can read it. So this one would be a new one that you didn't have in there previous.
So when you say reserves, I just wanna make sure that I understand correctly, you're talking about reserves like emergency grant, recreation, telecommunication?
I'm not sure where, and what your authority in those reserves are. I don't know what has been in the past, but I know capital reserves, you are the trustees of those.
So when you're talking about this right here, what is your,
I'm talking about the capital reserves.
Yeah, that whole, like, the flat funding of the
Right.
capital.
Right.
And we talked about that flexibility where the board could then spend it as it sees fit.
okay,
I think that this article is gonna require either like something shown on a PowerPoint or presentation to try to, cause there's gonna be a lot of questions about that, I think. This is the one that people are gonna be like, we've never done this before, and you can just spend it on whatever, and I think that's where showing the scheduled, repairs and replacement of equipment and stuff like that.
the plan.
Explaining the flat funding would be important here.
We can do that.
Cause there's gonna be, I think there's just, I mean, we can not plan for it, but certainly someone's gonna say, what, you know? That's just my thought.
Heather?
I had brought this up before, and I do feel strongly about this, that I think in terms of transparency, whether it happens, I guess it would make sense for it to happen after town meeting if this is approved, that there is a section on the website that ties to what the capital reserve accounts are at and what the schedules are, so that people have the ability to just easily go and see that this is what we have, this is what we're planning, and then as that is updated, do that there for them to see as well. Just so that it's not, people aren't caught off guard by it, they do have access to that information if they want to go find it.
So put the replacement schedules on
Yeah,
the website?
and the information, like whatever the presentation is perhaps that's made for town meeting, that maybe has a tab so that people can see, this is the explanation of what the plan is, and then these are the schedules for each capital reserve account that exists.
Joe?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when
Is that
we
number correct?
talked about the flat funding, Jerry gave us those sheets that showed each year, showed a graph, and then showed estimated what we thought they were gonna be, and I think that, is that what you're referring
Yes.
to as? I think it would be useful for us to show that when this comes up, and then say, if approved, this information would be on the website, just to build more transparency and try to build a little bit more trust with the community and comfort on that, because I think this will be a lot of discussion on this one.
Sorry.
I think the schedules could be posted
Okay.
now. I don't think we have to wait for that. We have the capital schedules now, the budget, I don't think that that's a problem at all.
Or maybe perhaps.
Assuming it's approved.
Like how we do the thing for the warrant articles for the land use ordinance changes, and people have the ability to click on that tab and they can see the information ahead, or the public meeting information. If we put a tab that said, this has been part of what the select board is discussing, proposing, this is going on the warrant, so that people have the ability ahead of town meeting to be able to go get some information around this situation.
Excuse my being naive here, but can you just give me an example of when you would put this into force? When you would ask the select board to do this?
Sure,
Me?
if something we were planning to buy is cheaper this year and we have the funds and we need it sooner, or
It breaks.
if
and we
it
have
breaks,
to-
we need to do it.
Or at the replacement market, it doesn't need replaced, we can say, keep waiting, because they didn't ask for it in their budget this year because they knew that there's that flexibility.
Versus in the past, we would have
Ask
to
for a
require a
truck.
special
Right.
town meeting.
Yeah,
So
or
we
the,
wanna give basically carte blanche to the select board.
well,
Well, I wouldn't say it like that. I say.
That's kinda how it reads.
You give if
that's
you-
why I'm bringing up this discussion.
You give
about
carte
the-
blanche to the select board to follow the
Plan.
10-year plan for each department based on their reserve
That's
account.
not how it reads though.
What?
That might be.
Well,
what
that
you-
might not be,
that's-
yeah, I understand, it's not how it reads, but I don't,
This basically grants,
It says in
the board.
accordance with the purpose of the reserves,
yeah, what,
right, and so
the
with the.
reserves change, the purpose of the reserves change.
But we're
annually.
saying that we would show the intended purpose, like what Jerry gave us at like 5 or 6 meetings ago, the replacement schedule, and we'd say like, this is what, we want to establish the intended purpose, and we want to show you all, and then this will be available online for you all to see. Because we had that discussion where it was like, if a department head thinks, oh, next year I might need a truck, and they ask for the money, and then they don't necessarily need the truck, it's like, well, I got the money, should I go buy the truck? Or versus, you know, we're planning on replacing this truck in 2 years, it broke this year, now we have to have a special time meeting to get the truck, whereas I think this is better, and we just are establishing at the same time what the purpose of the reserve are by showing, and then have it on the website. If that someone thinks that I explained that wrong, let me know.
No, I do think it's important, though, after we're having this discussion, that it's ahead of time. I think that that has to be up ahead of time, that this is going, you know, that we're gonna do this.
So what if you just change the language to say, instead of in accordance with the purpose of the reserves, in accordance with the 10-year plan, as approved by the CIP committee and, well, it's not, but I think based on what our plan is, we're trying to make it so that if there's a way we can do things cheaper or more efficiently,
I understand that.
Yeah.
I just
I just don't know how you.
I just think this is too ambiguous. I'll just leave it at that. This can open up doors to a lot of different things.
Expenditure in accordance with the purpose of the reserves. Expenditures in accordance with the proposed 10-year plan.
Yeah, but again, it's a 10-year plan, it's not a 10-year guarantee, it's a
Right.
plan. That plan changes. I've given several examples of how that plan changes over the years. It's changed dramatically sometimes. So I mean, that's a long, like, so if something was on the plan to be purchased in year 8, and now it's year 1, and we say, well, you know, we could save $5,000, we're gonna buy it now versus wait until year 8. I mean, that would give you the authority to do that.
And that's the intent.
Right.
Yeah, but that's my problem with it. It's basically giving you carte blanche to buy whatever you want,
Well, within.
within the context of the plan, but
That's
I mean, it
correct,
could
right.
be.
Yeah.
And that's the intent. The intent is, look, we're planning on buying, you know, a pumper truck, so we're saving up money for that. We're planning on buying a new plow truck, and we're also planning on fixing the roof. Well, the roof, we plan on fixing the roof 15 years from now, because that's when we estimate its useful life is gonna be up, and we're gonna replace it. Well, we had a heavy snowfall and the roof caved in. We don't need to go to a special town meeting to ask if we can replace the roof. We have money already set aside in the reserve and available to be used, and the amounts that we're raising every year are accommodating that, so that we're essentially keeping the amounts that's being taxed at a reasonable, flat, or slowly increasing rate, like 1%, 2%
I think
every
that's the point that's so important to make, is that we
Yeah.
don't wanna see big spikes. We
Correct.
want to
Right.
try to keep things as
As
level
oppo-
as possible.
Right, as opposed to, well, we raised taxes for, for this year, and then, well, the roof caved in, so we're gonna pull from the unassigned fund balance, and then we're gonna have to compensate for that in next year's tax levy, right? You don't wanna
Probably
do
call
that.
my insurance company if my roof caved.
Well, right, but you understand, you understand the concept,
Yes and
right?
no, yes and no,
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, I think that the key thing here is just presenting this well, and also presenting that, you know, under this strategy, we know that this department is asking for $205,000 for capital reserves every year for the next 10 years. This department's asking for $195,000, and the thought process being that helps folks have a better understanding of what's on the horizon versus, hey, in 5 years, we're gonna have to ask for the big one, because we need a new, plow truck, or we're gonna buy a grader, or we're gonna get a dump truck, whereas this helps, you're gonna roughly replace this in 10 years, squirrel away. If you get to the 10-year mark and you don't need it, you don't have to buy it, you might be able to stretch it for a few more years, might get it refurbished.
I think the interest savings is also a thing to point out that's worthy of showing why this is beneficial too.
Correct, it's much cheaper this way, because you're not borrowing for it, and on top of that, generating interest on the savings as you're building up that savings.
I don't see what that has to do with anything.
Yeah, I'm seeing it as two separate subjects
It's two
myself.
separate-
So we've got
It's two
the,
Well,
got,
Well,
we got,
it's
we got
just-
the.
it's just that, it's- you're correct, it doesn't have anything to do with the
There's nothing to do with it.
But
Exactly.
Right.
it does have to do with, how is this a benefit to us and why would we vote for this?
Yeah, the first thing is being able to explain the flat funding item and why we did that in relation to keeping the taxes at more of a gradual increase as time goes on. The second part of it is giving the select board authorization to spend those funds against that plan at will. That's a second item that's, I'd like to see us keep that separate, you know, from they're two different subjects in my mind. You know, you first gotta get the town all on board with, I'll say, flat funding the departments with the gradual increase. That's a change of the way we've done it in the past. And then secondly is now you're giving the select board authorization to spend those at will for those things. I get it, they've got the schedule and everything, but that's a second leap. It's not the same leap in my mind.
So can I just bring up one concern that I have if this doesn't pass? We didn't put any of the reserves, the expenditures out of the reserves. We're not putting that on the warrant. So if this doesn't pass, right, then we don't have a mechanism to fund.
Sure
We do?
We have to have another special town meeting.
That's
and
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
You
what
would
they
just
have
another
to,
time.
and that's what, I mean, at some point,
Right.
the townspeople have to have trust in this board and this town manager and whoever's sitting in those seats and say, we trust them.
Yeah.
There's no way to just magically make that happen, but this is something that's going to, you know, the expectation is it's going to save us money in the long run, these two articles combined, because they're two separate articles. But combining them saves us money, then gives more flexibility to, the department heads in the town. And it comes, you know, for some people, it might come with a leap of faith. But if they don't like what happens, they have their power at the next town meeting, at the voting booth, at our meetings and all those things. And I would just say to them, you know, at some point, we have to do things what's best for the town, and this is what's best, what we believe is best for the town, not only us, but based on the people that we've retained to make these recommendations.
I think I'd be okay with it if it was at least capped, spend up to maybe 15% per year on something. But you basically can say, I can buy whatever my credit limit is for that year, or whatever my fund balance is, I can exhaust it. I
Yeah.
think that's really what the issue is.
And then understanding though that, I mean, what those reserve funds are for, and that if you do it this year, you're not gonna be able to do all these other things you need to do, so then you have to answer to the townspeople, and,
Yeah,
that's-
what's the answer to the time? I think it's just a
I
little.
I mean, that's where it comes a leap of faith. You just have to have some faith in this
That's a
board.
big leap of faith for a town that wouldn't even give I think a $10,000, basically, fund just for a discretionary fund.
Well, that was the 7 members of the budget committee last year that voted against that. And
What was the town too? It was-
No, we didn't, it didn't go to the town.
Yeah, we did have a motion on the town floor for a select board discretionary fund.
Oh,
I
maybe
believe
a
it was
discretionary
I
fund,
believe it
but
was
not the
I believe it was
contingency.
$10,000.
Last year?
And it got shot down like a rocket.
And that's where I said, I think that if we're showing behind the
I'm not
curtain
saying this is a
here,
bad idea, I wanna be clear on that, I'm just
No, I
saying-
think it's important to
I
have the
think
discussion
it's-
because
I
there
think
are
it's
gonna
too
be people that
open-ended
bring
and
this
it's too-
point.
It's, there's just not enough dialogue in it for me to say, it's just too open-ended, like, there's no cap, there's nothing.
well, there's still, you know, input from the CIP, and then you still are voting for.
CIP's all over, they don't meet till next year,
Right, but
this gives no input.
But they helped drive those strategies for what's included there, and you know, you are relying on the expertise of your department heads to say, you know, we're not pulling it out of nowhere, that this is an expected lifetime for
Joe, I
people,
understand,
you know.
I think that I'll tell you one of the prime examples of where I draw from in the past that would worry me on this is the ladder truck. For many years, the fire chief, and we had panels, apparatus, committees, et cetera, half buying a new ladder truck, half we're never getting a new ladder truck. New chief comes, we'll just refurbish the new ladder truck. But in the meantime, the select board or whomever this year could have just bought a new ladder truck.
They
And then it
could've
could have
not
been,
bought
and it
one,
might,
too.
that,
They could've
but that's my
refurbished,
point.
too. Yeah,
Things that change, this town, especially the way it grows, is very fluid. And I think you just need to be careful on a quote-unquote 10-year plan, because a 10-year plan might be too far of a stretch for this town.
I mean, isn't that kind of what Jerry was tasked to do though, is to come up with a capital plan?
We've been working on a 10-year
This
plan
is-
before we even hired Jerry.
Right, but I mean, like, and that's why we came with this flat funding. I just feel like this is kind of like the midnight hour to be pulling out on
I'm not,
this
this is the,
process. Yeah,
this is the way this question is reading this time tonight, that
yeah, but the process, we've talked about at like 4 or 5 meetings at this point.
the process for this year and how much we were spending, yes, but not overall in perpetuity.
What if,
We've been talking about it.
Not in perpetuity.
Well, we've been
We
talking about
talked
putting
about
this
flat
on
funding
there.
for this year for specific equipment.
Well, we had the
didn't-
10-year presentation on the 10-year plan.
Again,
and
we haven't talked about it in terms of, let's just grant this authority.
we-
That's
we-
what this
we-
would
we
do.
have talked
That's
about
what
that.
this would do.
so,
Not in that context, Joe. I disagree with you.
We took notes, but.
Check 'em
we
all.
talked about
I don't
it.
care.
so, I don't know that there's a way to word it.
Yeah, I don't either. That's my concern.
And so what I would suggest is that this, if we include language, something like the select board in consultation with the town manager and department head. So that way,
Isn't that implied though?
No.
With
no,
this, like,
no,
what does it, I mean,
that's one of his concerns, is it's
Yeah.
not implied.
Right.
And so if you add that language, it's in consultation that way, and whatever consultation means to the board, but to me, and then at the end, purposes of the reserve, if we just said purposes of the 10-year plan that each department has created as,
You could actually list out the different reserves and then list what the purpose of each reserve is. Public Works Capital Reserve, purchase and acquire and construct public works related capital asset. I mean, you could just put it as part of this article.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, to make it quick, I'll, just how I would personally read it, just and you guys can, it doesn't necessarily take the ambiguity out of it and doesn't limit anything, but what if you just put, to see if the town will authorize the town manager with the select board approval?
Yeah, because you have the ultimate approval anyway.
Correct. That'll alleviate it being more of a joint effort rather than a total authoritarian effort from a select board. The request will come from the town manager, it'll be approved by the select board.
Yeah.
I think it's
Authorized.
6 of one, half dozen the other. I don't think there's any difference between that and this, so I don't care, whatever gets people to the finish line.
You
I
said
understand your point, it's wording, but I just wanna just.
It's wording, that's all I'm.
That's,
I'm-
no, I
that's all
get it,
fair
I just
points.
wanna see if I'm reading, I just wanna,
Yeah, no, I respect that on you, yeah, no
to
question.
see if the town will authorize this, the
Town
town manager, but the town manager doesn't appropriate the fund, the approval has to come from us. So what if, I mean, that's where
That's a good point.
that's where my concern, which is why I said the town manager in consultation with,
The select board with the
about the
consultation.
request from the town manager.
upon request of the town.
Authorize the select board with the request
Request.
from the town.
Yes,
manager.
that's fine, I think that's, man, I'm assuming that's what would happen.
Yeah.
I'd like to assume that's what's gonna happen, but yeah.
To
I-
see if the town will
Authorize the select board
To
upon
appropriate
the
funds.
request of the town manager.
to
To appropriate funds
see if
upon
the
request
town
of the
will
town
authorize
manager.
the select board upon request of the town manager to appropriate,
To appropriate first.
To appropriate first.
oh, to appropriate
funds
upon
the
request.
Of the town manager.
Upon request.
Of the town manager.
From the town's reserves.
Or recommendation, request and recommendation of the town manager.
I think it's as long as there's two parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the
Request
request
and-
is already gonna be coming in the,
Yeah.
I think it's,
Okay. Request of the town manager. Okay.
the request will include the recommendation. This is why we're gonna do
Appropriate funds
this.
upon request of the town manager from the town's reserved as they deem necessary for expenditures in accordance with the purpose of the reserves.
Do we like that?
I'd like to make a motion that Article 23, with the proposed edit, to include upon request of the town manager, after the words appropriate funds, be included in the 2024 warrant articles.
So just, have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
Josh seconds.
I'll vote for it.
Any further
Voting
discussion?
on these, in this manner.
I do remember
I
the
think
select
you-
board
I think
voting
what
on
you were-
budget article, voting on warrant article wording. I do remember that happening.
I think what you're trying to do, Heather, is vote to amend Article 23 to state, to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate funds upon request from the town manager from the town reserves as they deem necessary for expenditures in accordance with the purpose of the reserves.
Sure, so
And
moved.
if we
Friendly
aren't
amended.
yeah, if we aren't voting on the warrants individually, we're at least voting to change this one, and then we're accepting them all, so.
Okay, that works for me also.
Okay. We're all set on the wording?
So, yep, and whatever we wanna call that, an amendment, or,
Amended article.
A motion
how
to
about, you want me to
amend the article.
you want me to, withdraw?
Your motion, I'll make a motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
There you go.
Robert's rules, man. Robert's
There you
a tricky guy.
Sometimes I try to get things going and it just went the wrong way.
You did great.
Go ahead, Joe.
I move that we amend Article 23 to state, to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate funds upon request from the town manager from the town's reserve as they deem necessary for expenditures in accordance with the purpose of the reserves.
Second.
Heather seconds. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Motion carries, unanimous. All right. Article 24 is also highlighted.
Oh, I just wanted to say, real quick, so we did just discuss briefly the need for like the explanation of flat funding on this article and the explanation of the 10-year plan. And so are we agreeing that that should be shown on the screen or provided as an insert in the town?
I
Thing or-
definitely think that that should be the case, and I also think that it should be on the website ahead of town meeting.
Because I understand what you're saying, it's like it's a leap of faith, so I want to make sure people aren't getting the information and then being asked 2 seconds later. Whether they go and find the information beforehand is a different story, but at least if we're providing it. So it's almost like a little blurb of information in association with the article. I don't know if that's been done before.
Can I ask
I
a
mean, with the
question?
land use stuff it
Go
was.
go ahead, Jerry.
If we put the replacement schedule on the website
Mhm,
and we're due to buy something
mhm.
and we don't buy it because it's not ready, are we misleading them with that information?
No.
I'm just asking.
No.
I think if it's proposed, if the word proposed,
Okay.
right, this is the proposed
Well, yeah,
plan.
Right.
Or proposed replacement,
Right,
10-year
right now, it's,
replacement
yeah, I
schedule.
mean, it is a proposed, it's an estimate on a plan for replacement. And the point of it all is that it will allow us, flexibility to
Right.
hopefully exercise that plan later than sooner is really the biggest point there, this, so we don't have to just go out and buy a truck. And it also allows us the latitude that if we do wait, and we waited the extra year or two, and then the truck just goes kaputs, we can just go out and get one right then and there. Granted, there's lead times on things,
Right.
but that's a different problem to have. But you can, to me, that's kind of some of the pitch to it. I'm just debating on when we would do that, whether we present that at the beginning of the meeting or not. We can discuss that afterwards. So I wouldn't necessarily, maybe, but that's a different,
We have time to
Yeah.
discuss it.
yep. Okay? So I think, yes, I think there does need to be some sort of whether we do it in the beginning and I'll say the manager's presentation at the beginning of the meeting.
I think it's on us to present this. I don't
Yeah,
think.
I
Well,
don't
no,
prefer-
what I'm getting at is during that part of the meeting or in the middle, either or. And I get it, that yes, the select board should probably present it. So,
Do we agree that it should be a tab on the website ahead of the meeting, the way that the land use article option to be able to go in and see what those
I don't
proposed
see there's
changes
any
are?
problem with putting a proposed 10-year schedule out on the website. No, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do that ahead of time.
I do plan on putting the budget on.
Yeah, I would put it up there with the budget, you know, as a separate item.
Now that we're all on the same
Yeah.
page.
I mean, the 10-year schedule could be, you know, should be out there anyways, because then as we update it, the next year will become number year 10 after this year's up, right? So,
Right.
you know, it's a revolving 10-year schedule, you know, so you just keep editing. I would not put live edits up there. I will say it needs to still go through the chop of the CIP before you go and put the next year's schedule up. But
Well, I'm not.
meaning, well, the CIP looks at that schedule. So the department heads come up with their schedule yearly, correct? The 10-year schedule, you're gonna add a year next year, right? Because
Yeah.
you're gonna get 2035 on there, or whatever year is the 10th year. That'll add on next year. Don't post that until it's vetted. Don't make it a live update, meaning don't update it continuously.
I'd only do it once a year.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Once a year.
But I don't know what the CIP committee has to do with it.
Well, they're the first ones that look at it
Next year.
next year. After you get done with your department head, you hand that off to select board and CIP.
Yeah, and what are they gonna do with it?
They at least go through and look at it and look at the request for that year, but that's the timeline.
But there's no request, it's flat funding.
Based on
It-
this.
I get it, but you're still gonna update that schedule. Yeah, you're right, that's flat funded, you're still gonna, never mind, sorry.
Okay.
You're almost,
No.
Right.
we're almost getting towards the thing where the town
Doesn't
meeting will
need
come to,
CIP,
this will be a referendum
Right.
town before we know it.
Yeah, very true, yeah.
So Article 24 is just a standard one we have every year.
And I want
Right.
Mark to speak to that, because
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this, first of all, I doubt that this number is calculated correctly, but I think that this entire warrant article is moot, because the way people think of the property tax levy limit and the way that the statute is actually written, how it's calculated, are two different things. Most people think property tax levy limit is whatever we raised last year, there's a limit on how much we can raise this year based off of the property growth factor and the personal, average personal income factor, right? So that's not how the statute reads. Statute reads that your property tax levy limit is last year's property tax levy limit, not the last year's property tax levy, but the limit increased by whatever those two factors are. And so as a result, by now, because the statute went into effect back in 2005, and because the limit is always greater than last year's, right? It's actually compounded to a point where now it's unrealistic that any town or county would be over their property tax levy limit. And I'll give you the example from last year. Franklin County asked me to do the calculation because the administrator was worried that the 20% increase, one of the county's residents was, complaining, hey, you're gonna be over the property tax levy limit. Because it was gonna be a 22% increase in terms of property tax levy from one year to the next, 22% tax increase. I did the calculations, and the calculations were property tax levy limit, they could have raised 83% more than what they had done in the prior year, because of the fact that it wasn't based off of what they had actually raised last year, based off of what their limit would have been last year. And their limit last year was based off of what their limit would have been the prior year, and so on and so forth, all the way back almost 20 years. And given the fact that, those two factors, the property growth factor and the average personal income factor, are pretty large. They're not like 3%, 5%. I mean, during COVID, during the last 3 years, just the average personal income factor was like 12%. I mean, it was crazy large. And then when you add on to that, the property growth rate, I mean, you were getting, well, I think, no, the two combined was like 12%. So there were, in the last 15 to 18 years, that percentage increase has been pretty significant, to the point where, like I said, Franklin County could have raised their taxes, almost doubled their taxes, and they would have been under the property tax levy limit. So this article at this point, first, I think the $1.8 million is incorrectly calculated anyway, because you're just focused on the municipal appropriations, and the LD1 doesn't actually, the statute doesn't talk about just municipal appropriations, it just says how much you levy in taxes, so that would include your county tax and how much you're levying to compensate for your county tax and your education, so you really should be around $11 million or something anyway. And on top of that, I think your property tax levy limit is probably somewhere around, like, I would imagine $15, $16 million at least, and there's no way that you'd ever come close to that. Now, you can leave it in if you want. I would suggest getting rid of the actual number unless you want somebody to calculate it. If you leave it in and people vote it down, doesn't matter, because you're not gonna be anywhere near it. If you leave it in and people vote yes, doesn't matter. So all I'm saying is, I think it's unnecessary at this point, and I just pointed out to clients because there is this misconception about what it really is. That's pretty much it. So you can leave it in, it just doesn't really make any difference how people vote for it.
Okay. But it's not required that we have it on, because we're not gonna go over
It's
it?
only required for you to have it if you're going to exceed the property tax levy limit, and you're asking the taxpayers, hey, are you allowing us to exceed what is the limit by statute? But you're not gonna be anywhere near the limit.
In the past, have we skipped that and
We-
not voted on
we-
it unless it was,
We have,
came into issue?
we
Right.
have. It was not needed last year, we skipped it.
Right, if it's not needed.
That's what I mean, is like,
they
we
know
have just not voted on it unless we,
Are close, or.
but based
where
off
we
what
thought
you're
we're
saying, in the
close.
past years when we said, oh, we might cross the limit, we probably would have calculated it wrong.
What if they raise money on the floor?
Even if, they would have to raise X millions of dollars on the floor.
Like the police
Before you
department?
get anywhere close to it. I mean, I really do think that most people, I think most people in Maine have a misconception about it because they really think that there is this limit of, a certain percentage over last year's tax levy, but that's really not how the statute reads. The statute reads last year, the subsequent year's property tax levy limit. And so when you add that up over years and years and years,
If it's not applicable, why not take it out?
that's what I suggest, but.
Right.
Unnecessary votes and unnecessary time and discussion, it just adds to the meeting.
If we're not even close to the tax levy, then it's.
There's no
it seems-
Sounds
reason
like
to
it's-
have it.
Several $1 million, so
Yeah, I don't think any
So,
town.
take
at
it
this
out?
point is close to it.
Are we comfortable taking it out?
I'm good.
Okay.
Do we wanna vote on that?
Well, I don't think you have to.
No,
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, and don't go with Article 24, because things might shift as we
Yeah.
take things out.
I see what you're saying.
okay,
We'll just take it out, I'm gonna take it out.
yep,
So 25 and 26, you can open up the other, we'll do the ordinance out, we'll stick with this. So these business articles, I just left the,
Oh, we're gonna skip the ordinance for now.
for
and do
now,
business. I
yeah.
see, okay, thank you.
so I just
Sorry.
left that in, I mean, this is your warrant, I'm assuming you probably wanna take it out. This was the whole reducing the, well, we take that right out, I just left it in because it was in last year's.
That was the whole,
I'd leave it in just to see, hey, we still can't fill these seats.
yeah, I was thinking of leaving it in.
Just-
We only got eight members now, and,
Maybe we'll get somebody to run or be
well, there is
interested.
someone new running
right,
this year.
there's no papers in, correct?
I haven't heard.
They
Yes.
got paper,
There are
yeah.
3 people running for the 3 spots.
They're out,
Yeah.
okay,
There you go, so we're all set.
they were all set, yeah.
So take it out, because
I
we're
don't
all,
know.
there's 3
And-
people running?
And is the vacant seat, was that for somebody who was being elected, who would have been elected this year?
The vacant seat, I believe, was
Mine.
Heather resigned.
Which her term would have ended.
There,
This
if
year.
all
This
3
year.
are elected, it
You
will
on
be
the right
filled
one?
with 9.
You're on
Because
the
it
right
currently has 8 and there's 1 vacancy.
Okay.
But not, the reason,
Yeah, you're on the old one.
I'm not,
no,
So,
asking.
it's 25 on that one there.
So leave, take
if
it
there's
out.
something I don't know, tell me, I'm just.
I mean, we could leave it in there again. I mean, I think that my own opinion on this is the budget committee does not need 9 people. It's really that simple. They could survive with 5 people and maybe 2 alternates at most. I'm not sure that you get value with the 9 people, and we're always, I mean, granted, we have 3 people that are running for the seats. I think typically we're short. But anyways, just my own opinion on that. Heather?
My only concern is that if we have, people are gonna be elected the day before,
You
right?
can't change it now.
Right.
That's what we
Change it
ran
now,
into
yeah.
last year.
People are gonna be elected the day before.
Yeah.
We have 3 people running, we have 3 open seats, they're gonna be elected the day before.
But I think what we said is,
So the-
I mean, you
the
can
artic-
change the years
the
here.
article, the years would have to be
The
changed.
years would have to
yeah.
be changed, and you just age out the people when they fall off, and then that's it.
I
And-
feel like
and-
the AC just came on.
What's that?
I feel like the AC just came
Set
on.
for 66, so very well maybe.
About time.
65.
Yeah.
65.
But anyway,
Sorry.
so, I mean, I don't think this is a bad idea. I'm not trying to.
No heat for you.
Trying to, not undermine what the budget committee does for us. I don't think that's the point. It's just that there's a large amount of people on that committee, and I'm just not sure you need that many people to make the decisions they're making. Rich?
I think last year the reason why we put this on was because we were having a hard time filling those billets, for lack of better words. Being that we don't have that right now, and being that the town was, I think they were pretty convincing that they wanted it to stay as it is, I don't see a reason to present it again at this point in time.
Joe?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I agree with Rich there. I mean, last year we brought it up, and it was a big discussion, because there's people who just got elected and said, which seat is the seat that you decide to take off, and who doesn't, and then, so if we were having the same problem of not being able to fill it, I don't necessarily think it needs 9, but if we're gonna have 9 as of April 6th,
Yeah, I mean,
save ourselves the vote.
I'd like to utilize the budget committee in different ways next year. I mean, they literally meet for, I'll say, 6 hours on the budget. So the amount of time, actually, the time for value there is, I'm just not sure you get the entire value out of all those people. I mean, I'd like to diversify what they go do. Maybe even change their charter a little bit.
Well, their charter says they're supposed to review our audit.
I get
There's
that.
already more opportunities.
But, again, they meet for about 6 hours a year. The question is.
Charter change would require a town approval. We don't have any authorization to
Yep.
change anything about the budget committee. That's not even worth discussing. It doesn't fall,
They're independent.
they're independent.
They're independent than us, yeah.
We don't have any
Okay.
control over the budget committee. It's meant to be.
By design,
By
check and
design.
balance, check and
It's
balance.
designed- Exactly right.
Okay, so are we removing it?
Remove it. I'm fine.
Okay. Mark, you want to talk about Article 28?
Yeah, and my comment on this to Jerry was that I wasn't really understanding the purpose of the warrant article. Under state statutes, the select board have the authority to raise what they call an overlay of up to 5% more than what is required by the calculation. That's called the overlay. So I think that that's what this is asking, because there's no such thing as the townspeople saying that you can't, that you're gonna limit how much you're gonna abate taxes. If the assessor says, hey man, I screwed up and I valued this property incorrectly and this company paid us $100,000 more than they were supposed to, then you gotta abate that. They didn't owe the taxes. It doesn't matter whether or not it's 5% more than what the tax levy was or 10% more, it doesn't matter. You have to abate the taxes. So this doesn't really make any sense to me, because either you're just talking about, can we raise an overlay? We already can do that under state statute. Or you're asking for something that they can't authorize. The townspeople can't say, no, we're not giving back that taxes that they don't owe.
I thought that I remembered that this said,
It said the same thing last year.
it did?
Yeah.
I thought that it
Article
said,
33.
I thought that it said that if a budget didn't pass, that this article, not this one, that's the way that this is worded, but that they could use the previous year's budget number.
Oh, that's a
You have a.
That's a
separate-
That's a
one.
different one,
Yeah,
okay.
We're gonna talk about that too.
Okay, so you're saying that this warrant article is not needed because this is under the select board's authority anyway, when we set the overlay?
Yeah, there's a statute that allows you to
Okay.
raise up to 5%.
So more or less it's saying, vote to follow state statute.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't
remove it?
make much sense.
Let's tax it, one less vote.
Remove it? Just seeking
Are we good? All right, no one's gone.
We're gonna be down to 22 articles.
One more article, I think this, so Article 4, right?
We're going backwards?
Yeah, we gotta, yeah, because I didn't highlight this one. I just think the year needs to change.
Which, does it matter what sheet, Jerry?
It's the very front page.
Of both of them.
Of both of them.
Both of them.
Oh, this is what I said.
Yeah, right, this is.
Jog
so
your
I-
memory.
But that should say 2023, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
So last year's warrant had the same year, that's why we're trying to,
It said 2023.
yeah,
I just thought of another question.
So that was wrong?
Oh.
yeah,
I hate when that happens.
so we'll change that to 2023.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the business articles?
Sure.
So I had brought this up last year because the interest number in like 34 and 35 and whatever, I'm just making sure that we're crossing our Ts and dotting our Is, that those interest numbers reflect the current, like what it is now, what the statute says, like, cause that number changes, right?
May, did you?
The statute doesn't specify the number, that I think it's the main revenue service sets the number.
Right.
It's set every year, I don't know what it is for this year.
Okay,
I think it's more than 2%.
okay, so that, I just wanna make sure that that gets,
So we need to change that number to whatever the state
Right.
indicates. Do we know where
Yeah,
that
it's up
is?
to you guys. You can't go more than that.
We can't go more than that, but we don't have to go to that number. do
That's
we?
correct, right, you don't have to.
So I don't know why,
I don't know what it is.
I don't think we wanna start
We don't
paying.
wanna set it, no, but. we-
no, so, okay, there was a conversation, like, that if we're holding taxes, not paying interest to people on money that people are basically prepaying,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But then there was one where we charge people interest
Correct.
if they're late.
Right.
And so I just want definitely for the late to reflect whatever the highest rate is that we're able to get.
Oh, is that what you, that's what?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, we can look that up and find that out.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, and maybe other people don't feel that way, but I do.
So you're saying, like, the first one's saying the rate to be paid by the town, and then 35 is the rate to be paid by the pursuant?
Correct.
And right now, we're saying the town pays 2%, but the.
To
other
see if the
people
town
pay
will vote to
0%?
authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments, no, we want
Oh,
that to
sorry,
stay
wrong
zero.
one. Sorry, wrong
And then
one.
to see if the town will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town on overpayment of abated taxes, no, where's the other one?
No, it's Article 34.
Oh, okay,
Oh, no, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry.
I don't,
Is there no one that says interest
Yeah.
rate to the town?
Yeah, no, there normally is one, right?
there normally is one.
Yeah, I don't see that.
So can we add that?
Yeah, sorry, I left the conversation.
It's not in here. The article that people pay interest to the town
Yes,
if their
it's
taxes
Article
are late.
30.
Oh, it didn't get put in there?
Article 30 just doesn't say a specific percentage amount.
You
It
should
says-
have it, you should have it.
It should have a specific and
Oh, well, it actually says it's gonna be.
the maximum.
whatever the
Maximum allowed by the
is.
state
Right.
law.
Okay,
We just
Perfect.
know what that state amount is this year.
That's the same Article 35 from last year, exactly the same wording.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
So.
So we're all set there. Anything else on the business articles, no? Okay.
Yep, I have one that I wanna go over with you. 39.
The one in blue, yeah, that's what I was getting back to, yep.
Yeah, so this is kind of getting into my,
Oh, boy.
my manager report. So I think we need to take this out and not even do it this year. And here's the reason why. Donna and I had a conversation, and where we're going into a revaluation, we don't wanna do a revaluation and change the fiscal year all at the same time. That would create potentially a mess, because you've got some people who are building new houses that are getting assessed at the current rate, but then you have other people who aren't, and if we start doing reevaluations and readjusting the year, it could really turn. So she wants to wait until the reevaluation is over to get everybody on the same playing field and then do this. So I put this on here thinking we would do it this year, but both of us aren't comfortable with that. So,
Okay. Joe?
I think Heather had her hand up.
Okay.
So my only question would be that, my understanding was that the revow wouldn't be able to be done until
Right.
2027.
so we have to wait.
And even though that's the case, if we did do it this year, that's 3 years before the revow is done. That's not enough time in between.
She didn't like it,
Okay,
no.
okay.
She didn't
So
like
we'd
it
be
at all.
looking at potentially switching to a fiscal year, the earliest would be probably 28.
Right. I mean, we've been going this route for this long.
Might be
Well, I would
so-
say probably later than 2028.
Yeah,
And,
that's like the earliest.
so, and here's another thing.
So before you just axe this, so I thought we were coming in here to ask the town, it's more to me of a survey vote than anything else. Doesn't mean we had to do it next year, and it doesn't mean we have to do it the year after, but does the town have any interest in going this route? I thought was what what the goal was here. Because I took this as, after they say, yeah, we like it, we'll go put a committee together and have them look at how this, and that would be a good use of the budget committee, to go look at how this looks
Well, we don't
over
need
long
a
term.
committee to do that, it's all laid right out,
Okay, I
and
mean, so
we'll just do it. Yeah.
then,
Towns do it
Yeah, I
in the
agree.
past.
I think,
I mean, you can do that if you want, but then you're gonna say, well, we're gonna do it in 3 years, so why would you ask it now? So, but that's just my 2 cents.
Rich?
I think eventually, I'm in favor of going to this, but I think it needs to be discussed throughout the year prior to it going on this, before there has to be some meetings about it, because there's gonna be some changes with it, whether it's 2 tax bills per year, or maybe a tax bill and a half in 1 year, or something like that, so I think we need to get out in front of this, probably a year or 2 prior to it coming out, but I don't see how we could even add it on this.
To agree on
Heather?
Jerry to get rid of it.
I think that, last year, if I remember correctly, the presentation, when it listed it as one of the goals.
It is.
And so I think that it should definitely be listed as the goal.
Another goal,
and then-
same, keep the goal there.
But also, at town meeting, it is the largest opportunity that we have with people face to face. We never see more people at any meeting other than town meeting throughout the year. And so I think that's an opportunity to say to people, please pay attention to the website, please pay attention to the newsletter. We will be holding informational gathering sessions and that type of stuff, and we want people to take part in it and get that out at town meeting, where we do have potentially 200 residents versus Phyllis at our
But it
meeting.
sounds-
gotta get the word out.
But it sounds like Jerry doesn't want to take the time to even do that next year, even the informational sessions.
Well, I mean, you could, the informational system, I just wouldn't do it until the reevaluation's done and everybody's on the same.
Okay,
Then-
that's fine.
Okay.
Cause I think most people are gonna look at that, what's that mean? Like Rich said, well, it could
Okay.
mean paying for 18 months of taxes, it could mean you're paying 2 tax bills. Oh, geez.
So, let me
The
explain
can of worms we
too.
don't need to open.
what we're doing with the reeval, so, we got the 2 bids back, and they said they would complete them in 27. The actual bid itself said completion date by 2026. So we had, they went out to 7 folks. One company completely declined and said we couldn't do it. 2 of them said, well, we'll do it in 27. So Don and I are like thinking, well, did the other 4 not submit a bid because they couldn't meet the 26 deadline? So we
Maybe.
resent it back to those 4 with a 2027 completion date, so it would match up with the other 2 that we got.
Okay, good.
And so we'll see where that goes, just so it's fair,
Yeah, that's a good
and
idea.
that's how this conversation was with this, all got started with the reevaluation and moving to a fiscal year issue.
Yeah.
And then did you wanna talk about the,
Well, you need to review your.
The warrant.
Okay,
Which is in your other one, it didn't get inserted into the new one, so,
it's in my other one.
Business or the ordinance warrant?
yeah.
They're in, the old formatted one. What articles are they?
32, 33,
Are they-
no, because
No, those
it,
are wrong. Those are the,
well, let's not number them because we took articles out anyway, so it doesn't matter.
yeah.
So don't talk about it by article number.
It should be the articles that George gave Kimberly to insert in there.
Right.
oh, sorry,
To
yeah,
make
those are.
greater allowance for accessory apartments to increase lot sizes or state law requires multiple full-size dwelling units on a single lot. Nothing about that changed, correct? Nothing about this changed from the last time that we had the conversation about this?
Right,
Okay. And then 33, to see it. Okay, nothing about the solar one changed, and then to see if the town will vote to enact amendments.
Sound good to me.
Okay, wait, hold on, to see if the town will vote to enact amendments to the land use ordinance. Certain fees for inclusion in the fee schedule, to enact fees for certain permitting services. So we had made a change, it said periodically, we changed it to annually, and I don't see any of that.
you didn't mention that in there, I thought.
I don't see that, but I don't see any reference to it whatsoever now, neither one, so maybe he just omitted the language.
Well, I think that what we're saying here is we're approving the draft amendments to codify certain fees for inclusion in the fee schedule. And then if you pick up the copy of the draft amendments, it will then
Right,
state all,
Okay.
that whole document that had like 26 fees listed out, and then we added in Josh's recommendation of and anything not previously called out that is called out in the ordinance. So I think that this is referencing that document, which someone would have to, it's kinda like when we did the land, like, you don't have the entire solar ordinance listed out in the warrant article, you say, do you accept the solar ordinance draft?
And then you go to the copy of it.
Right,
Yeah.
I understand that. I thought when we changed the wording of the article, there was the annually and periodically change. Remember we voted to
We
make
changed the
that
wording
change?
of the article, but the warrant doesn't contain the
okay,
entire
okay.
language,
Got
article
it.
text.
Okay,
Right, we did change that one word, to
Yeah.
periodic.
And then we added, Josh wasn't here, but we added your suggestion about and collect set fees if something's not called out specifically.
Okay.
If something's called out specifically.
okay, so I'm good with those. We're not voting on that, so we're gonna vote to accept this with the changes that we made? Is that,
I'd like to see it all written out, like, at our next
Yeah.
meeting, or,
well, we got, when's this going to print,
okay.
Jess?
Yep.
Well, it's gonna go to print, March 1st with the draft on it, so.
I think we saw that last meeting, correct?
Yep.
You missed last meeting, but I think that we had that at last meeting, correct? If I remember correctly? The language? Thought we looked at that. After we.
No, I just meant I'd like to see
The
this all
changes that we made
together.
tonight.
Oh, sorry.
In a
I thought you
completed
meant-
form.
That's what I,
before.
yeah.
is it, can we vote to make the changes, and then they send us the draft before it goes to the printer? Is that,
So it's gotta go on Friday, so I don't
We'll
wanna
get
have,
through back.
I won't have time to comment between now and Friday, so
I
it doesn't
won't
matter
either.
to me, I
Yeah.
trust you all.
Sometimes you're at the hand of the mercy of time, and if something in the past, if something has come back, you can write like a little letter in there changing the actual wording of the article, and we vote on that at the top.
Right, because we can put, it'll still say draft, and
Right.
you have up to 7
Put a
days
sticky note.
before town meeting
Well, you can
posted,
do
so we still have time.
I can't remember what it was, but I know there was something. that got
I've seen it
screwed
before,
up.
just an
We had that
insert.
little insert, yeah.
The only other
Usually-
point that I want
Bright color.
to make is, usually you did your ordinance articles first at town meeting. This one is set up to do the budget articles. Are you okay with that, or does it matter? Or you have any preference, or? So I just want to point that out. I just,
Is there a reason why it was changed? Or just the way?
just,
All I know is,
I like the idea.
last week, you're asking me to attend the town meeting on Daria, and I'm charging by the hour, and last year's ordinance articles took from 9 till 1.
I think it's fiscally responsible to put this
Whereas
first.
I could just, you could just do the budget warrant articles first, or I could show up.
No, I think that's a
see what I'm
fair
saying?
article, and I think it's
Works
fair
for
to you,
yourself
I think it's fair
out
to
of
people
hours,
like
man.
the chief, who
Yeah.
don't necessarily need to be there as a non-resident, to discuss back lots or whatever we're discussing in that particular day, so I think that's fair.
Yeah, works for me.
okay.
is the budget committee gonna meet before this goes to the printer? Because I think we've changed our budget recommendation, and
Well,
if my
they,
recollection is correct,
yeah, they will, unless they want to keep their use of fund balance the same with the new tax, county tax coming in, they'll have to meet to change it.
before Friday?
Before you go to print.
Yeah, maybe they can do it by email vote,
Cause we made it easier and we voted to go with their numbers.
right? But they don't have the.
But they don't, I understand that, but I'm saying in terms of. Yeah, that's a good point, John.
Does the budget committee vote on budget use of fund balance?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They vote on everything that has a fiscal impact.
Okay. I think we're done with this part? Or do you want, are we voting on the whole thing? Oh, we didn't do that yet, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just trying to
would-
keep us moving down the road.
Yeah, we're gonna vote on the whole thing.
With the edits that we
With
made?
the edits that we
Okay.
made.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the draft 2024 Durham Town
Warren?
warrant, because it's not just budget, with the edits made tonight.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
I marked up all the changes, if you wanted me to scan this and.
Yeah, I would give it right to Jerry.
Okay, your manager
Do you
report.
need,
Oh, I kind of,
you need a copy of all the changes, or you have them?
no, I have them. I
Okay.
have them.
Okay,
I drafted the draft changes.
managers report?
Other than what I told you about, the conversation that I had with Donna, that's really pretty much all I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, we did, I can report on this, I have moved into the boardroom now, so Jessica's working on moving into where I was, and, slow move, but we're getting there.
Good.
you gonna put a lock or something on that,
There
or,
is a log,
so, okay.
yeah, it does lock.
Jerry's catching up with Calvin in terms of office space.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
I just have one question,
Oh,
sorry.
all right, go ahead.
We're
All right,
making
sorry.
committee appointments. Can we do that in the consent agenda?
Or is that
Unless you
separate?
wanna discuss them, I think you can.
Oh,
What's
okay,
that?
okay.
there's a
Unless we wanna
discussion.
discuss them.
Yeah.
So, all in favor? We're back
All in
there.
favor? Okay, unanimous. All right, committee appointments, we have Durham Scholarship Committee.
Oh, I thought we just voted to accept that in the consent agenda.
Is that part of it or a separate
Yes,
item?
that's
Sorry,
part of it.
okay, my apologies, all right?
Sign it, that's what you said?
Thank you to the volunteers for the committees that have put their name in here. The Durham Scholarship Committee, Deputy Warden, and Election Warden. Thank you.
My pen's kind of
All right,
discolored.
upcoming meetings, we got select board meeting on 3/5 next week, which is a workshop. Our next scheduled meeting for regular business on 3/12. Those are both at the fire station. Planning boards on 3/6/24. Any reason to have an executive session this evening? Seeing none. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Second, Joe. All in favor? Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.